What's up, everyone? Let me know where you're checking in from. Today we're going to be talking about troubleshooting hard start on a Volvo D13. Now this is a pretty specific troubleshooting procedures test. You guys can hear me all right? Let me make sure. Let me get a mic check if you guys are listening. If not, we're going to keep on moving. So we're going to be talking about Volvo D13s. If you guys got any questions, hit us up in the chat. I'm going to wait for everyone to join us. But today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Volvo D13. Now, if you got any questions or concerns about your truck, let us know. And I can probably do a live on it, or I can cover that. If you want to get your question covered pretty quickly, give us a shout. Super chat's available. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Getting ready to go into the cold weather season. We're going to be discussing hard starts on Volvo, how to troubleshoot them. We're also going to be discussing the construction of the injectors, how the different style, there's two different style injectors, so there's two different style cups as well. So I just want to make sure everything's coming online correctly before we start the broadcast. If you got any questions, as I mentioned, or concerns, hit us up. If you're in the DFW area and you're looking for service, let me pull a map up here for you guys so you can visually see. If you're coming through the DFW area, do a share screen here. If you're coming through the DFW area, Dallas, Texas, that's where we're at. If you're coming down Interstate 20, we're right there. If you're coming out of Houston, we're off of you can reach us there off of 20. 972-225-3017. We'll be more than happy to help you troubleshoot any problems you have. We follow all procedures, same access, same tools, if not very fast, expedited professional service. I was gonna mention, actually we are better than the dealer. I just didn't want to start any fights out there. Let us know where you're watching from. We got somebody in the Philippines watching. We're gonna be talking about Volvo D13, hard to start. Let's go ahead and get this broadcast started. I'm just gonna pull a couple things up before we get started. So Volvo uses two different style injectors, which I want to discuss. And then when you do have an issue, I want to talk about the proper procedures on troubleshooting that. So that's what we're going to start with. What's going on, everybody? Make sure they got this focus in. Got people in the Philippines watching us. Thanks for joining us. Today, there's some problems that we see. Let me turn this background music down. So we see problems with hard starts all the time on diesel engines. And we're going to discuss today specifically the Volvo D13. They're different. It's a whole different construction. Each engine is different. Each platform is designed differently. If you guys are used to watching, and I discuss all the time that everybody's engine is, they're similar, but they have different designs. So Volvo is completely different. Most of the time when you have a hard start, it's going to gradually start. So what I mean by that is you're gradually going to start noticing issues with a hard start when it comes to, and what a hard start is it's taking too long to start. So if you're sitting, most of the time it's going to happen after a long, overnight stay. You wake up, you get to the truck in the morning, and you try to start it up, and it's just taking a long time. It's taking a long time. What happens is it's losing the prime. So what I mean by that is fuel is all the way up, being supplied all the way up to the injectors. So if it sits for a long time, usually there's going to be no leaks in the system, so it's going to be like airlocked. So when the truck is off and the fuel is not being pumped up to the injectors, if the system is airlocked, it's not gonna drip back down. It's not gonna draw back down. But what happens is air ends up entering the system, and we'll discuss how to pinpoint that. But air starts to enter the system, and you lose your prime. So the fuel returns back to most of the time it's just going to make it back down to the fuel housing, from the fuel housing up to the head. So that's enough where it drains down, where it's not going to have enough fuel to crank it up after the first 2 or 3 turns. So what's happening with a hard to start or a delay start is you lost that prime. So when you start the truck up, the pump is working for a longer period of time before fuel is actually making it up to the injector. So that's why it becomes hard to start or a delayed start. Now we're going to be discussing Volvo specifically because there's different troubleshooting practices that you're going to take with each truck. So if, for example, if a 60 series holds its prime most of the time with a check valve, most diesel engines use a check valve. Where these check valves are, they've changed in different designs. On an older Series 60, it would screw behind the head. Still kind of a pain in the butt to get to, because you'd have to take the fairing off and still do, hug the engine so you can reach behind where the back of the engine is, so you can take the check valve. On a Volvo D13, the check valve is actually made into the filter housing. Now, if you are familiar with filter housings, let me give you some images of what a filter housing is. So the filter housing is where you use your primer. You have the priming pump. I know you guys are familiar with the priming pump, where your fuel filter actually screws into. That filter housing, it's not really that large. I mean, it is a large component, but what I mean is not that complex. It's pretty basic. It's not like compared to a DD13. Their fuel filter housings are, it's almost like kind of like some kind of transformer fuel system type or filter housing. It's kind of over the top, but either way, they all do the same thing. They have pumps. Most of the time, those pumps aren't really usable. You can, if you do have a hard start situation in this and you're losing your prime to the filter housing, that will help. And the only reason why I said they're not too useful is whenever you're doing any kind of major repairs. So for the regular user, maybe a fuel filter replacement, those pumps will work. Sometimes they start losing their seal, those hand pumps on the fuel filter housing, and they can leak. The seals are dry on the top, so if they're not getting pumped often, then the seals will dry on them. So what I've noticed is the seals they will start to leak. But either way, on a major repair, if you do anything like fuel injectors and you drain the complete fuel system, using those hand pumps are just very, very tough to get the system back prime. So maybe I should be more clear about that, because we don't have the practice of using those, because most of the time when we do open up the fuel system, we have to prime the entire back. We have to supply the whole system again and prime the whole system. So that hand pump usually won't help us out. But so the fuel filter housing is, let me show you an image of the fuel filter housing here. Let me see here. I'm going to do a share screen, but I just wanted to didn't want to. All right. So this is a fuel filter housing. I'm sure you've seen these before. Let me see if I can get a better image here. Here we go. Let me share the screen here. So this is what a fuel filter housing looks like. It's tough to see. I was looking for something a little bit more detailed, but this section here is your fuel filter housing. And as you see, there's a lot of fuel lines running to it. The gray one that's highlighted is a fuel line that that you're going to put in there if you're troubleshooting it. So that's something that I'm going to get to here shortly. But I honestly don't really like this image. It doesn't really, let me come back to the main screen. I think I have a better image than that. So the check valve is most of the time is going to be the check valve is going to be in the fuel filter module. Okay. So, but it's not replaceable. You can't repair it. You can't try to rebuild these fuel filter housings, and these fuel filter housings will need to be replaced. They will need to be replaced. It's not something that's not common. Most of the time, these fuel filter housings are the first item that gets replaced before having for the hard start situation. So if you're having a hard start situation or a hard start, most of the time you're gonna have to do a fuel filter housing. But what I'm gonna be discussing today is how we troubleshoot it, because sometimes just jumping straight to, hey, it's a fuel filter housing right away, eventually, yes, you're gonna have to replace that fuel filter housing. So do not be shocked, especially with high mileage trucks, 400, 500,000 miles. That's high mileage, okay? But you gotta understand, the fuel lines that they use for these trucks, for especially Volvo, are plastic. So they're like heat shrink plastic tubes, sometimes in a banjo style. Most of the time they're like banjo boats. If you're familiar with a banjo boat, it's a hollow boat. So that's how these fuel lines are made. I mean, if they were all like flexible quality steel braid, something like that, then I wouldn't be so cautious about how you're troubleshooting, because any kind of air that's entering the system could be from these lines, these older lines that end up. You got to understand, if they're made out of plastic, they're very close to the engine. They're not, they're hot, cold. Over time, they get brittle. And if you understand what a banjo boat is and how a banjo boat is made, they use crush washers. Those crush washers, they're kind of like AC washers, but kind of like a washer for an AC. It's a steel ring with a rubber inside seal on it, and these take two, so you're gonna have to take on the top and the bottom. So anytime you're servicing or troubleshooting this particular fault, it's very important to understand you may need to replace fuel lines, and this is what the testing does. Now, injector cups could be also point of entry where air is getting into the system, which I'm going to discuss. But what I was getting to is most of the time it's going to be the fuel filter housing. When we do the test, I know you guys see some of the videos that I share whenever we're doing the air and fuel test. Now, what we're doing is isolating where air is entering the system. Now, I know I mentioned that whenever the truck is turned off, you lose your prime, and yes, air is entering the system that way. But when you're running the truck as well, you may be able to notice low power. Now, what happens when low power starts to happen, because wherever this fuel leak is happening, or you're losing air, or air is entering the fuel system, it's going to run that aerated fuel into the actual truck, into the cylinders. Now, aerated fuel, what is aerated fuel? It's just basically kind of like carbonated fuel. It has so much air pressure in it, it actually goes into the cylinder kind of like foamy and like bubbly. So whenever the injector is trying to spray, it's expecting just a solid line or solid fuel of not aerated. So when you got aeration, when you got aerated fuel going into the cylinder, you could notice loss of power as well. So not all the time though. So you could have a hard start that's not getting too much air in the system. So sometimes it could give you an indication of, or could give you an indicator of low power as well. And I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast. Whenever these types of faults start to happen, they will happen gradually. Sometimes they will happen maybe right off the bat. Sometimes they will start happening just gradually and get worse and worse and worse. So with this air and fuel test, which I'm looking for the images now, my apologies, but I'm going to have these images up here shortly. These images are the videos that I share is when we're doing the aerated fuel test. Now, what that does is just isolates the fuel filter housing. It isolates the fuel lines coming from the fuel pump. As I mentioned, these fuel lines are plastic, and that's how they're constructed all the way up to the head, to the back of the head. Going back to the engine, they're all constructed by plastic. So over time, they get really brittle and you can get air in them. So canceling these air lines, whenever we do the aerated fuel test, we will cancel out the fuel lines going to from the fuel tank to the fuel pump. So that particular pump, if you're getting any air in the system, you're going to be able to see bubbles. So first we'll start with the return line, which I'm about to show you a photo of what the return line needs to look like when the engine's running. So what we start to monitor is how the fuel is coming and going back to the fuel tanks. So when we go and we inspect this, when we inspect this fuel line here, you can see how clear it is. So sometimes you can have some aeration, which is some bubbles here. It'll look kind of like fuzzy, but or bubbly. So right now you can see how clear it is. This is how the system starts. This is how the test initiates. So we put this here. Then now we have a clear visual of what the fuel looks like coming out of the engine. This is the return line on a Volvo D13. The return on most diesel engines, the return line is going to be in the front, and the feed is going to be in the back. Okay, so here we go. The fuel's returning back. We got visual on it. We're looking for aeration. Our complaint is hard to start. Okay, so what we start to do is, as I mentioned earlier, is we start trying to isolate the problem, because right away some shops will mention, hey, replace the filter housing. But if we cancel out the fuel lines going from the tanks to the fuel pump, that's going to give us, hey, that's going to cancel out that we got bad lines from the pump to the tank. Okay, that's going to cancel that out completely. Now if you move over to the filter housing, you start isolating that as well. Now that goes back to this one image that I shared at the beginning. There's another clear line. Now these test kits that we use, they come with all different types of lines and banjo bolts. These lines are made. As you can see, this is a banjo style bolt. It's open in the center. It's hollow in the center. This filter housing is going to send the fuel coming off the filter housing. It goes through the ECM to cool the ECM off. Now, if you're not familiar about why they do that because this is the ECM. I know it may be hard to see, but the ECM are the two plugs here. The two plugs right there. These two big old plugs that are plugged into the ECM. And the ECM is directly bolted to the engine. You can see a bolt here, right here. See a bolt right there. This ECM is directly bolted to the engine. So the only way that they try to protect this, and the only reason why they try to protect this particular I'm sorry, let me go back. The only reason they're trying to protect this ECM, the only way is running fuel through it. So the diesel fuel is supposed to cool that off, but and they do this because the engines are manufactured all as one, so there's no way to kind of put this ECM somewhere else. It wouldn't be possible, because of course these harnesses are made onto the engine, so close to the engine. So anyway, this fuel line runs through the ECM to cool it off. It returns back to the fuel filter housing. It also supplies fuel to dozer blocks as well. So as you can see, the fuel is plumbed all through the engine, just all different areas. So this is another reason why it's important to troubleshoot it properly, because for this step here, we're installing another clear line. It's another clear line that's similar to this one here, but it's a shorter one. And with that line, we're able to view, okay, are we getting air from the filter housing? So this is what this step will do. If we see solid fuel going in, for example, as I mentioned here, solid fuel, if the indicator's like this coming off the filter housing going into the ECM to cool it off, if right there is clear, if right there is clear, then we know that we're not getting air from the filter housing. Okay, so this is how we're isolating the problem. First, we did the fuel lines going to the fuel tank. The fuel pump going to the fuel tank. We did those. We isolated those. Now we're here. We are here at the pump or the filter housing, and as I mentioned, if we don't see any, then we know it's not there. The next step, there's other hoses that we're going to be making sure that we're not getting air through the ECM, and on and on. So this is how we isolate the problem. Now, say for example, we put these different lines on, and we still have the same problem. We're still having aerated fuel. Now, let me give you an example of what aerated fuel is going to look like. Let me know where you guys are watching from. If you are in the DFW area and you're looking for service, give us a shout. 972-225-3017. We offer fleet service. Any service you're looking for on-highway vehicles. Also medium and light duty buses and RVs. Give us a shout. 972-225-3017. We got all the up-to-date equipment. All standard procedures are available to our technicians. We ensure that all steps are followed correctly. Troubleshooting can be time consuming sometimes. So if you're coming in for troubleshooting, try to plan to leave the truck if possible. Because as I mentioned, when you troubleshoot, one thing you don't want to do is rush. Because it's kind of like going to the doctor and asking them to rush and check you out. And you might get a mild diagnosis. So anyway, here I got a video of what it looks like, and I don't know if y'all can hear that, but so you can see here the air. You see how it's not smooth? See that? It's so much aeration that it just looks. It's supposed to be clear, but you can see how foamy it looks. It tries to clear up towards the end, but it's just not clear. You kind of see it kind of try to clear up a little bit further. Now it's kind of clearing up. Now this is an indicator of aeration. This is what I'm talking about. So when we try to isolate this, for example, the first step that we did, the fuel line coming from the fuel pump to the fuel tank, and then we put that line on and these bubbles went away, that would be an indicator that we got some aeration coming from the fuel lines, the tank to the pump. Now if we come off the fuel filter housing and we get this signal off the fuel filter housing, then that's going to give us an indication that we got some air in there in the fuel filter housing. That's going to give us a hard start, because even if the check valve's good, air still entering the system some way. And there's not rebuild kits for those fuel filter housings, so just expect to replace those after 400,000 or 500,000 miles. Those fuel filter housings are going to be. So we've isolated, just giving you more indication here. We isolated that it wasn't the fuel lines, it wasn't the fuel filter housing, but we still have this aerated fuel. The next indicator, or that's basically going to give us an indication that you have injector cup leaks. Now, why does this happen? Now, the design on these particular injectors are very different compared to others. Most of the time, injectors are going to have fuel seals, a rubber fuel seal. Volvo injectors basically will seal itself on the cup itself. So I'm going to give you an image. There's two different style injectors that they use. Let me give you an idea. Now, I want to be pretty clear about this. Okay, let me stop right here, and I want to address something. Guys, I'm not sharing this information. I know there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and I give you props for this. I give you props. But let me let you know that messing with these engines is not like I wouldn't use this as like a project on how to learn, because I'm gonna tell you a story. I had these goofball people. I don't know who they are, but sometimes there's some people that get into the industry. They own fleets, and they're very inexperienced. So I was put in a situation where I had to share space with this inexperienced person, and they had a whole fleet of Volvos, and it was goofy because I had to share space because we were getting a new building built, and it was right around COVID. If you guys know us, we're from Dallas. The build where we're at here is a building that we built a few years ago, and we've been. Let me do a share screen. We've been servicing the DFW area for a really long time, since 2008. We've been in the DFW area, but we moved to this building, and we were at another area, and they ended up buying that building, so we had to share the space. Okay, so this inexperienced fleet owner kind of was like bought the property where we were operating in, but didn't really understand that he was really inexperienced when it comes to real estate, because the property that he bought from us, or bought not from us, but bought from the owner that we were doing business on, had 2 buildings there. Hit that like button. Thank you very much, Wick. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. So there was 2 buildings on this particular property that we moved from before we built this building, and this inexperienced guy bought the property, and it was really shady because I recall whenever we were working to get the building done, there was people there coming to see the building. So one of the realtors knew. I told him, I said, yeah, that building, the second building, is zoned for retail. And if you're familiar with zoning, you're not allowed to just do whatever you like when you buy a building in a city. Now, you can do that in the country, but in the city, they do what is called zoning. So specific properties are zoned. You can rezone it. For example, there's properties that are zoned for housing, residential. There's commercial property. There's a property that's zoned for gasoline stations or retail. So they're really kind of tough to change those. I'm not sure why. With technology that we have, things should be turned around a lot quicker, but it does take a lot. For some reason, technology in that aspect has delayed things, and maybe AI is going to change that over time. But either way, he bought the building not understanding that the second building that he planned to move into was zoned for retail, and he thought he was, hey, you know what? I'm gonna move my trucking company in there. Very inexperienced. He came from a nursing background, getting into trucking. So very inexperienced. Most of the team very inexperienced. But either way, had to work with him. We were trying to be patient to get our building done. Ended up being not a good idea because, as I mentioned, when you mix inexperienced people in a situation where, we're in business, especially if they're very inexperienced in business, they really start to fumble. And when they start to fumble and they're around you, you start kind of, have feeling the effect of it, because, as I mentioned, we had to share space. So that was retail. He couldn't move in. Asked, hey, you know what, Adam, since I did buy this whole property, I know you're still here and your building's not done, but I want to move my trucks into your building as well. So forcefully, I was like, okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead, and I didn't have a choice. I was, trying to get this building done so we can move. So in that transition, hey, I'll give you work. You can go ahead and work on my trucks. And so, being an inexperienced operator, he knew he was hiring a lot of inexperienced drivers. So those inexperienced drivers will cause more wear and tear on trucks than you can imagine. Let me get a water break. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Hit that like button. Hit that like and subscribe. Make sure to share this video. I'm going to finish this story up. What you guys got in the questions here? Can bad injector cups cause, or that the sealing on the cups cause low efficiency and no X codes? I'm glad you mentioned that. As I mentioned, when you have aerated fuel needs to be, the air and fuel mixture needs to be perfect. Okay, so that you're not producing excessive soot. When that mixture is not right, yes, you can produce excessive soot. That's why I mentioned some of those problems can come up like gradually or all of a sudden. Some of them you have a hard start. You can have hard start issues. Air and fuel tests, it comes down to low power as well. It's a troubleshooting step for low power. It would be a troubleshooting step if you're having excessive NOx. And I know you've been watching, so this would be a good test. So would a boost leak test if you haven't done a boost leak test. I know that you're chasing down that NOx code, so hopefully that information helps. But yeah, these are tests that we would run as well. Boost leak tests, because I know you're getting low efficiency only on a pool. Thanks for joining us again. I recall that you get that. It's me again with the Volvo low efficiency. Yes, sir. For the code, can it be anything starting from the cylinder? So I can just think today about the cups, and now I see y'all talking about it. Yeah, well, that's why we do these tests. If you're in town, or if you can get to a shop that can do these types of tests that I'm talking about, and this is the specific. Let me go back to the story. So this goofy guy buys the building, not very educated. The realtor knew it, because when they were showing the property, I was there, and I remember telling the realtor that, hey man, if this potential buyer is buying this property, make sure to let him know that the zoning, half of this property could not be rezoned. It's been tried multiple times to be rezoned. Half of it's retail. You can't use the whole thing for trucking, even though it looks like it's set up for that. And when I told him that, man, he had this like reaction, like oh shit, like he didn't want to talk no more, like oh shit, and like walked off. And I was like, that was weird. And come to find out, he probably didn't share that information to the buyer. Now that I think about it, I don't think he shared that information to him. That's why he had that reaction, because some realtors are like that. And I don't mean to put a bad name on realtors, but they work on strictly commission. So they don't get paid unless they sell something. So I'm sure me telling him that information, if that made it over to the buyer, that probably would have affected that buy. I don't know if that guy would have bought that, but either way, he did. He turned around and started stripping the building out and tried to remodel it without filing any kind of permits with the city. And that's why I call him goofy, because someone that walks around and acts like they're educated and they know a lot, but they're doing very stupid things, ignorant things, like processes, and overlooking processes, like permits and stuff like that. You start to kind of like, okay, I understand, so you try to stay away from it. But either way, they were tearing that building up, trying to get it going. They ended up moving into our building that I was still occupied in until my building was done. And I was like, I'll try to work together. Let me try to be nice, work together with him. He was passing me his work, but he ended up having another, he hired somebody on that wanted to be, he started moving his trucks in the, hey, I want a section of the shop too, so I can work on my trucks. They were just a trucking company. But now he wanted to start trying to do work in-house. I want to start working on my trucks. I want to, and he had this technician, this guy, really nice, kind-hearted person, but he was trying to attack and jump on these big jobs, injector cup jobs. He was trying to tackle these big jobs. And that's why I wanted to take a break, because I share this information with you guys, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Okay. So what ends up happening, this guy, they're doing their thing over here. One time I think we were troubleshot, or maybe he had a troubleshot somewhere, and they already, it was one of his trucks, and they would decide they're going to do injector cups. So the guy that didn't have the experience, and the guy that bought the building came to me one day. He's like, hey, I'm going to start servicing my trucks, and you know what? I need you to make an area for me, and I want you to teach my guy how to do this, teach him on the computer and all this and all that. And I was just kind of like really? No, we're not going to. And the guy would mess with our tools and I remember one time he turned his torch on, and he was like, the flame was here, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's going to catch the fucking shop on fire. And I was just, so he ends up trying to do injector cups and makes a mess. Okay. And of course we had to fix it. So guys, if you're not familiar with these types of steps, don't mess with it. We're about to start discussing injector cups and how injector cups work. But one thing I mentioned, these injector cups, there's different style injector cups. Some injector cups are not removable, some are. But this style injector cup on a Volvo, they're pressed in. So you have to use tools to push them in, push them out. There's important steps that you need to follow. Those tools that you use are actually going inside to the cylinder. So there's steps that you don't follow, you can cause some major damage. For example, there's one step that calls that when you are replacing cups, you have to make sure that the piston is all the way down to the bottom. Okay, on every time you do a cup. Some people won't do that. You know, they won't even check to see if the cylinder is pushed all the way down. So here you are using a tool to force an injector cup into a bore, and yeah, it does protrude into the cylinder slightly, because what happens is when you install the cup, and we'll talk about this. So don't try, if you don't have experience on this and you've never done it before, and no one's ever showed you, or you don't have the surrounding support, you don't have other technicians around you that have done this before, and you haven't been in this situation, be very careful. I wouldn't recommend trying to do this because you could cause more damage. Okay, and be cautious about what type of shops you're using too, because if they're not very clean and everything's outside and open, man, you can cause some damage. These injectors are so delicate on Volvos. If you look into the literature very deeply, Volvos don't even when you have the injector out, I'm talking about when you have the injector removed, the hose where the fuel comes out of the injector are so fine you can't even see them with your naked eye. You'd have to look at them with a microscope. And if you hit the tip of that, you can cause damage which could cover one of those injector hose that you can't even see. They're micro, and the reason why they make them so small is so that when the fuel comes out at that high pressure and at such a small hole like that, it creates a mist. So the mist is, and it just creates another clean mist. That way, once it burns, you're trying to cut down on, of course, excessive soot. So anytime you're working on these injectors, if you're messing with someone that works mostly outside, it's getting really windy, it's getting really damp out there. You don't want your engine opened up in these conditions. Okay, I know that, oh, this guy's cheaper though. You know what? Oh, there's a reason why they're cheaper, because they never wanted to update their facilities to be, because if you read into the literature, I mentioned a lot about OEM software, OEM manuals is what we use. Everything talks about cleanliness. Okay, being clean. You know, do not open the engine. If you are opening the engine, cover this oil hole. Use these particular tools to, you know, if you're doing an oil filter module on a DD15 and you take the oil filter module off, before you clean it, you must plug the oil hose. If you're removing heads, you must plug heads, oil gallery heads. Now, with this particular job here, when we go into replacing injector cups, you of course extract the old injector cup that's been in there for 500,000+ miles, right? Now you have to clean the bores out. Now in these particular trucks, they have fuel galleries drilled into the head. I'm trying to fix my chat box. They got them drilled into the head. So whenever you go to clean the injector bores, you can introduce dirt into those return journals that are in the head. So if the head, let me see if I could show you something here. Let me go to this. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. If you got a question, hit us up. Today we're covering hard starts on D13s. All right, so when we're replacing these cups, as I mentioned, you got to clean them. You got to clean the bores. Now, what I wanted to show you here is when you're cleaning the bores after removing the old cups, you use specific tools, brushes. Go to the end. They bolt to the end of a. They bolt to the end of. You can put them on a drill. You can put them on an automatic drill. Let me do a share screen here. So, whenever you do these cleanings here, you see how the tool cleans the bore out. Now, in this section right here, you're gonna put O-rings in there to keep dirt from going into the galleries. let me see if I can find a better image of those fuel galleries here, because there's a step here that describes that. So it's important to follow procedures. It's important to, step by step. We get to a point where we like to record every step that's being done, because it's very crucial. It's very critical when you're opening these engines. It's pretty much like a surgeon, and you want to make sure you don't skip any steps. And the only way to ensure, especially if you're repetitive, is recording. You're recording every step. And that's basically how a lot of places try to control quality. So there's O-rings that you'll enter inside here. It comes in the kit when you clean these bores out. Make sure to use those. If not, you can contaminate it. Now, let's go back to the different style injectors that these trucks use. And as I mentioned, you got to be careful. You got to be very careful when dealing with these. So these are the two type injectors. How's everybody doing in the comments? Let me see. Augustine's in the house. How you doing? Guys, if you're looking for service, we service all major platforms. TAT Express. We are off of Interstate 20, just south of Dallas. You don't have to go into the city. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate everybody that's joined us this evening. Let me see here. You've been driving for a year, 10 years. I'm sorry, you've been driving for 10 years, but I don't know anything about maintenance, the maintenance side. Well, thank you for joining us. It's I understand being a driver is enough. Just do your post trip, pre trip. That's gonna be pretty useful. I got a DOT inspection video, kind of gives you a highlight. But record if you notice this type of information, if you notice these faults, if you hard starts, low power, and you suspect, write it up. I know you guys probably have some type of process where you can write this stuff up and try to get it repaired. I know not every time it gets repaired, but I appreciate you joining us today. Here it is. All right, my cranking is a bit longer when starting, so that's why I thought of cups. I am waiting for a load around Dallas, so we'll do all the tests. Sounds good, man. It sounds like we're getting there. It sounds like we're getting there. I'm glad. I can understand how these problems can be stressful, very stressful. But it also can be the fuel filter housings that I've never changed it. So these tests that I'm telling you, this is kind of why we charge for our troubleshooting, because it is time consuming, but we save you some time and money when it comes to replacing these different components. I'm hoping to get some locations open up in the next few years. I know I've been talking about that, so I can service more of Central America, North America. I'd like to stretch out to the Ohio area. Right now, the last couple of years has been not the best for our industry, but the resilience one lasts, and these are cycles that basically happens. They're normal cycles. It was this cycle was a little bit more vicious because it was just something. The whole coming up was fueled by was artificially fueled. So there's really no track record on this type of market bounce back, because of there's just no history of the same kinds of conditions. But either way, thanks for joining us. You told me last time to not buy a Volvo that is too old. Can you elaborate on what is too old? Okay, well, I wouldn't say after 500,000 miles is old, but what I want to say is after 500,000 miles is where most of your maintenance hits. Like, so let me get a drink of water. If maintenance is not kept up around the 500,000 miles, the valve adjustments, dryers, filters, if oil changes weren't kept up, whenever say old, make sure to, and on anything you buy, is make sure that maintenance has been kept up, because what I've seen, and I've been in the industry for a really long time, and I see this often. I see this with fleets as well. We know truck sale places. We know people that sell trucks. We service fleets. We do all that type of work. So we know the types of trucks that they get. And like when they have trade-ins, they come in from fleets, they wait to that 400, 500,000 mark to change it in. Yeah, everything after 500,000 miles, you got a Volvo owner right now on live chat. He just said it right now. And he's been having a problem with the NOx conversion. Thanks for joining us, and I hope that we're going to come to a solution for him. But he just mentioned for you now, yeah, everything is breaking after 500,000 miles. Now, this is not just with a Volvo. This can be with any truck that has not been kept with maintenance for a very long time. And a lot of guys are stuck with this, oh, my truck's going to last 1,000,000 miles. Oh, nothing's ever happened before. It's never going to happen again. So, we had an example we had this guy with over 1,000,000 miles on the truck and the flywheel housing, everything old. Truck falling apart, and since then we've developed more guidelines. So for example, if you come to our shop and we do a courtesy inspection. Now, I'm not trying to discriminate with anybody, but at the same time, what we see is patterns of neglect, maintenance on owner operators, and they're just like not aware of the maintenance that's required of these trucks. So when it's pointed out or something pops up, oh, it's the mechanic's fault. It's the mechanic's fault. Oh my goodness, crazy! It's the mechanic's fault. But in reality, we're barely touching it probably for the first time after this long. And so yeah, things can pop up. This particular truck had over 1,000,000 miles, had 5 or 6 different DOT violations, is which I was about to mention. And once we see a unit comes in with more than 3 DOT violations and they don't care about it, they're like, oh, you know what, fix the AC or something like that. That's kind of a red flag for us, because we are, I myself I try to be concerned. I am concerned about public safety. I don't want to be helping truck drivers that have very bad habits with not being up to safety, and we're fixing something for them. It's kind of challenging, really, because safety needs to be first. But something happens, of course the driver's going to cry, oh, my safety was so important, my safety's. But you're not following all the safety procedures that you're supposed to be doing, all your maintenance, all your checks. It's taking responsibility as a driver when it comes to, like, for example, the guy that's watching now that has the Volvo, and you've been pushing this truck with the NOx issue, and that's good that it's not causing like major low power. But if you're a driver and the check engine light pops up and you have really low power, and it's probably after a repair or something, that would be definitely a good call on the driver to be like, you know what, I don't think I should push this truck. Something feels not right about this truck. It doesn't feel powerful. Something's not right. So driver responsibility, guys. We got to work together. We're trying to work together. But at the same time, if you know that something's going on with your truck and you know that you're pushing it more than what it's supposed to be, don't try to blame it on the technician. Especially if you're not 100% sure that you've been keeping up with your time, or keeping up with your truck and making sure everything's running right, not driving it like a fucking car, not driving it like it's some kind of Raptor that you wish it was or something, and it's really just an old 1,000,000-mile truck. Man, it definitely can cause some problems for you guys. So keep that in mind. After 500,000 miles, back to the question, after 500,000 miles, you're going to be looking for things that have a lot of maintenance. So keep up with that. If you're in the market for a used truck and somebody's not keeping up with that maintenance, man, it's really going to cost you a lot of money, because all that maintenance is going to fall on you. We have a viewer now that's stating that everything's breaking after 500,000 miles, and you're telling me I changed the EPRV. I mean, I put the plug by myself. I had low power appeal. Now, if you have low power up here, be careful with that. I don't want you to damage anything. Okay, that's kind of why I bring that up. If we know that we have a problem and we're continuing to run it, don't be surprised if you start creating more damage. And that's what I'm getting at. If you are able to get it in and get it repaired right away correctly, I would suggest that. I do appreciate you joining us and because I'm trying to learn, share this information and help you learn this information. But at the same time, I don't want you to cause more damage to your truck. Okay. Because it can happen. It can happen. Definitely happen. And low power or damage that happens on trucks, when it does happen, it's major. It's not like just something small. If something happens internal, it's just major, especially after you have an internal failure. And if you continue to push an internal failure and you feel like you have an internal failure, it's just wreaks havoc. So Wicked, I would say look into maintenance records. Definitely can expect some problems around the 500,000 mile, after the 500,000 mile mark, especially if there isn't any records. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. Let's see if we move this chat. Maybe I should move you up here so I'm not looking down. What else you got, chat? It says, I probably won't be buying until next year or 2026. I have to get the IRS off my ass. After working for some shady Siberian companies out of Chicago, I was a company driver, but they had me on 1099. Yeah, damn it. Yeah. So you know what? Those that's an example of inexperienced fleet owners. I've ran across like the goofy guy that bought the building. He ended up staying there, and it sucks because some of my customers, I don't know why, but I guess when we first moved, Google sometimes would pull us up in that old area, and he would know that my customers was going there, and he would still just, they would ask for us. For example, just recently there was an RV that was supposed to be towed to us, but the company that looked it up incorrectly and towed it to our old location, and they received the work. And as I mentioned, these people are not well experienced people. They just kind of moved in as a logistics company, and they're kind of going with the wind. Now they do have some help there, but you gotta be cautious. You gotta be cautious with the locations. But yeah, man, shady people like that, that's what happened. And it sucks, man, because we do everything up front, even though we can't satisfy everybody. And as soon as you don't satisfy everybody, they bark up and treat you as if you've been messing the whole world up. But we don't do that. We straight up integrity, everything. But it sucks to hear that, man. It sucks that you jumped into the industry and this guy 1099'd you, and now you got the taxes, and it's a learning process for them, I guess, and also you. But yeah, jump into as a company driver. If you're 1099, definitely, especially if they file it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Big fleets don't care. They just do oil changes at 30,000 miles and sell after 50. I appreciate that sharing. I appreciate you sharing that in the chat, especially with the viewer that's looking to buy a new truck. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Wicked. I hope you could probably jump in as a company driver first. I would definitely do that before trying to buy your own truck. Especially these trucks are not cheap, man. Repairs, fuel. I'm hoping we can get some change in the rates. So back to the main screen here. Next thing we're going to talk about is the injector cups. So these are the different style injector cups. As you can see, you got one con and then one flat, shaped like a sphere, and then one flat. So this one here is going to take a washer. This one here is going to seal against the cup. Now, this is the tip here. These are two different style injectors. So it's very important to work with someone that recognizes, because if they don't know, there's going to be two different tools in some of these steps. So, but this is one of the injectors mostly that causes the problems here, and you'll see these more. These will as well, but I see more of these, and we're gonna show you why next. Let's move to that. So 2 different cups, 2 different injectors. This is an injector cup. This injector cup is, this tip right here is actually facing down when you install it. So these injector cups they're kind of pressed in there. What they'll do is when we stick this injector cup into the area, and we put it in with a tool that has a wedge on this side of the tool, on this side of the cup. So the wedge is kind of like a triangle that's oversized for this hole. So when the cup is in the hole with the tool's bolted down, then we pull the bolt through the injector cup, this injector cup bore, and it makes the diameter wider, and that's what seals that cup in place. Of course, I mean, you have to put sealant, but it puts the cup in place, and that's how the cup is installed. That's how these cups operate. Now, the difference between the two is the surface of the cup seals with the injectors. Now, whenever you pull the injectors, especially with the conical ones, you're going to inspect the injector tip, because since the injector tip is this shape, it seals directly against the injector cup. There's no other sealant in between these. So the flat surface, this flat surface is what's sealing up against that cup. So you can have fuel leaking through here. Now you can see a little bit of soot passing. That's what I meant. Some soot here. Now when you go to inspect these cups, the injectors, you start trying to look at, are these reusable? Now you start looking at injectors that are worn, like this one. You can see how the cup, the pattern is kind of like off. You see how it's kind of like this. That last one was really uniform. Now we're starting to see patterns off. We can see soot kind of passing through here. Now we can see lines here on the injector. Now conditions could get worse. That section there is what we're trying to reseal back to the injector, or inject back to the cup. So if it gets even worse, these are more signs. Say for example, this one here. This is more signs. Now, most of these are going to be reusable, but these are just going to be signs of leaking. Like, okay, we got signs of combustion passing through there. If you find one that's showing combustion gas leaking through the seal. So if you find one, you do your best to clean them up. These injectors are completely different. You don't want to use like the 60 series injectors were very like bulletproof. You can clean them with a wheel brush and all this, and it wouldn't damage these. These injectors need to be cleaned with like cloths only. Whatever you can knock off. And if the tip looks too bad, don't be surprised if you have to replace the injector. Some people, in most cases, some will do injectors and cups, because if you have a leak in cup for a really long time and you have those gases passing through the tip of that injector, it will cause excessive wear, and it won't be able to seal properly. It won't be able to seal properly when you put a new seal on, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So if you have an issue and you have to do it again because you didn't do the injectors at that time, then yes, it is costly, because I mean, it's time consuming, very time consuming. You need the right tools. You got to do the cleaning. So the repair could be costly. If that's what your comments on. Hey, let me know where everybody's watching from. Thank you for everybody that's joined us this evening. If you're looking to get service in the DFW area, give us a shout, 972-225-3017. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. We're right here. If you're coming through Dallas, I know Dallas doesn't I hear that Dallas, I'm not sure if Dallas pays well coming out or going in, but there's a lot of manufacturing in Dallas. So I'm sure that there's something you can make. Maybe you can get down to Laredo or pick up out of Laredo. And the cross bordering right now from Mexico to the United States is like 3 or 4 folds, like so many times. So, I mean, the percentage of increase over the years since COVID, a lot of the nearshoring happened. So what happened is everything that was done overseas got nearshored, which is to Mexico. And now Mexico's becoming the number 1 importer to us. So I know there's a lot of freight, high volume coming in. So if you make it down to Dallas, give us a shout. 972-225-3017. We'll be more than happy to help you out. What you got? Let me see what you guys got in the comments section. See what you guys talking about in the comments and chat. I hope everyone's doing well this evening. Make sure to hit that like button if you joined us. So we got a few questions if I didn't cover them. If you want to hit us up on Super Chat, let me know. I worked on an automated transmission. It would not shift at a first gear, and I thought it was the clutch, but it was a bad alternator. I'm glad I didn't change the clutch. Yes, sir. Hey, thanks for sharing that, Carlos. And how did you find out that it was the alternator? Was it through troubleshooting? Because yeah, it's definitely not going to shift without enough power. Thanks to you, my friend, I've been able to save a ton. Really, Jose, I appreciate that. Repairs are costly. Thank you. That's nice to hear, Jose. I'm glad we're able to help. What do you think about putting transmission oil in the fuel tank? Does it help with, or do you recommend it? No, just keep clean fuel in there, man, and change your fuel filters out. If you're worried about contaminated fuel, just change your intervals. You do your oil change intervals closer. Don't wait so long if you're worried about it. I've adding fuel or adding any type of oil to the fuel. What I'll do for you is some fuel additives. I don't want to recommend anything just right off the top because honestly, there's not a lot. OEM doesn't really recommend any kind of additives for improvement or anything like that. If you have a dirty tank and you're worried about it, it'd probably be best just to replace that tank, especially if it's high mileage. Just replace the tank. You know, I shared some photos earlier in the week of a leaking tank, and some of these tanks don't last forever. They're made out of aluminum. We used to try to repair them. I remember we put all this time into pulling off tanks and try to repair them. And I recall there was this guy. He was a good welder, real good welder, and we would be able to take the tank to him, and he was out. But it would be time consuming because we'd have to run the tank out there. And he would do it by hand, and he would do a really good job. But over time, you know what happened? I took a tank to him one time, and he lived out in the country. And I pulled up and to pick it up, and sorry about that. There we go. Sorry about that. So I go to pick up the tank. But this time it was a mess. It was like, I don't know what happened. And he was really apologetic. He was like, I'm sorry. Like the tank, whenever you go to fix a tank, sometimes you got to cut them. So, he cut the tank. He wasn't able to fix it. He felt really bad. He was really apologetic, and it sucked. And he was like, I don't know what happened. I couldn't fix it. And I'm like, what was going on with this guy? He's so good. And he goes to tell me, man, my wife left me, and and he was an older guy. He looked like he's been out there for a really long time, living out there for a really long time. He was like, oh, my wife left me and all this, and it was just kind of like, it sucked that a woman can be so powerful in a man's life like that, and even mess up his mojo, like messed up his workflow. Don't try to understand that, this is normal. The only thing that's normal, the only thing that we can expect is change. So, what I like to do is try to be as master as I can in my craft. I love to learn. I love to get in deep into conversations and learn more about everything that's, and that's kind of why I'm here trying to share this information as well. But just, man, stick with your craft, man. Stick with your craft. The guy kind of lost, so the tank wasn't repaired. It was a total loss. But either way, it's really time consuming taking off tanks and getting them repaired. Most of the time, it's just going to be best to replace the tank. Shout out to everybody that's joined us this evening. Thanks for everybody, all the comments. I'm trying to get to all the comments before we wrap today's up. I hope you were able to get some information from this show. We talked about troubleshooting hard starts on a Volvo. I know I rambled on for a good hour, and hopefully you were able to extract some information from there. If you're curious or you're worried about getting something fixed and you need something fixed on your truck and you don't have anybody to take it to, give us a shout, 972-225-3017. We're located in Dallas, Texas, off of Interstate 20, just south of Bonneview Road. Give us a shout. All right, what do you got going on? Let me try to wrap these questions up here. One of the companies would edit logs to a point of having fresh 70 when I was out of time. If I didn't answer the phone while I was asleep, they charged me $300 for not answering. Damn, well, that's some crooked shit. They treated me like I was a machine. Damn it. I'm sorry that you felt. You know what? You look at it as I'm glad that this happened because we've been through some hardships like this, and that's how you learn. So it sucks that it happened, but you recognizing and getting away from it was smart. When I used to run trucks, some of the shippers are really, really like freaking cold-hearted. All they care about is getting, especially when it comes to produce, is their produce across to their customer. I'll share another quick story. I own some trucks, and I was running for a produce company, and it was this was before I stopped. And the reason why I stopped is because I'm just focusing on the shop. I don't want to, that's running like two businesses once. In trucking, it takes a lot of your time, and you have to be very attentive and have very good drivers and professionals. Now, this particular driver had just come off vacation. So he was scheduled on a load, and he knew about the load before the vacation. Now, he should have probably pulled off the load, but apparently they stayed up all night on their little vacation and came back, grabbed the load, fell asleep on his way to Arkansas, and turned the truck over. So Guys, when it comes to these decisions, man, you own the CDL. It's your life. You shouldn't let it, pass it up for a load, especially if you have a damaged truck. I'll give you another scenario. I had a customer that was blaming us for a malfactored part. It was a part that was defected, and it happens. It happens a lot. Look it up. It happens on all manufacturers have manufactured defects. So this customer had a failure or a noticeable misfire with a check engine, and still decide to drive over 200 miles to pick up a load of chicken. And this, before he was even under the load, he knew that the truck had low power and it wasn't right. And yeah, maybe the repair took a time and people get frustrated. So I understand, well, I need to make this money. But you got to understand, if your machine is not running right, and you're about to load this machine up even heavier and put a heavier load, I'm only going to make it worse. And the guy didn't stop the truck until it actually broke and wouldn't allow him to go any further. That's the only reason why he stopped, because it was defected rocker arms. One broke. Finally, one broke. Kept pushing it. The second one broke. That's when they finally I can't drive it no more. Oh, what happened? But he meanwhile drove his 1,600 miles on a load with a load of chicken, very heavy, 40,000 pounds, and OMG. So you guys are the and I say OMG, my daughter says that, but that's why I kind of joke with her. But anyway, you guys are the operators. You are the final call. You are the ones that are responsible to say, yes, this truck is right. Yes, I can make this load. Yes, I can drive. Because once an accident happens, once a loss happens like that, it's just damaging. It's damaging, and it hurts for anybody involved in it. So be careful out there, Wicked. Before this Volvo, I had a Century with the Detroit Series 60. I never seen a check engine light. The truck had around 1.7 million when I sold it. Now I have an engine every day. Yeah, Volvos are different. From a Series 60, we're talking about an engine that was manufactured back in 2003, even later than that. I think it was manufactured in the late 90s, and fuel was like $1.50 back then. So fuel efficiency wasn't capturing this excessive soot that later on showed all this smog in the cities. They weren't trying to do that. So those engines are they were designed for durability and not efficiency or capturing the soot. You have a truck that's designed for efficiency. You have better fuel mileage, smoother riding engine, but it comes with cutting down on emissions as well. So the after treatment system is definitely something that needs to be looked at. Another thing I would like to ensure is, if you are in the market, Wicked, and you're looking to buy a brand new truck or a used truck, the after treatment system maintenance is going to be very important. If the filter's not replaced at 400,000 miles, if it's just being baked and blown every so often, there's going to be soot packing and you're going to have problems. So definitely keep up. And also not excessive idling, driving it correctly, always loaded, not short hauls. These are all items that need to be kept in mind whenever an after treatment system could be giving you problems. I was told by the other guy that helps, but wanted to get feedback from you. I'm an owner op with a shop inside my semi. Okay, a shop inside your semi truck. That's good. Some people could have some. Hey, it probably wouldn't hurt it, but honestly, it's not really designed to be running with heavier oils in it. So I would definitely just do that. I mean, you probably can. If you what are you looking to do? Get some cleaning out of it. You got to be careful with cleaning, because if you do have like a lot of trash in your tank and you use cleaners to thinking that's gonna break that trash up, that trash may get broken up at the bottom of that tank, and now it's getting introduced into your engine. So if you do notice a lot of that black sludge to a point where it's excessive in your tanks, it might be better practice to replace the tanks before you start causing problems to injectors. Like I mentioned, these injectors are pretty delicate. So if you use an additive to clean up, and you might break up some of that hard buildup in the fuel, you could break it up and make it go into the injectors and clog up those micro holes that cause that fuel to mist. So be very cautious about that. Appreciate you joining us though. Adam, do you work on the trucks? We do both. We everything. We troubleshoot is most of the stuff that I'm involved in is troubleshooting, and ensuring that the steps on troubleshooting is proper. These newer ones are more designed to break at 500,000. After 500,000, there's going to be a lot of maintenance. So if they're not kept up, then yes, definitely. What I would definitely recommend, if you're in that 400,000 mile range and you haven't had any kind of maintenance, make sure to get all that stuff done. You want to do fuel filters on time, overhead valve adjustments. I would recommend once a year, 100,000 miles. I know they say don't do, in the literature, they're saying you can go a little bit further, but what I've noticed is valves getting out of adjustment a little bit earlier. EGR coolers get clogged up. That's not part of like maintenance where they tell you, hey, at this many miles you need to change your EGR cooler. But if you're changing out your DPF filter at 400,000 miles, you can expect excessive soot everywhere else on the EGR cooler and on your sensors. I appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Yeah, after warranty is very tough, but even when some warranties are they won't cover it. Volvo is a very, very big, they're known for trying to get out of warranty. It's in court documents. It's in court documents that they've concealed information to get out of warranty. And they're not able to be prosecuted nationwide, but there's cases out there, and they also had to pay big fines because of that, because of not following warranty. And what they'll do is, guys, if you're not familiar, is like they'll try to say the warranty wasn't, or the damage, whatever happened, wasn't caused by that. Oh no, it was because they're covering so much warranty by defective parts, defective suppliers that they start to use. And a lot of this started becoming more of a problem after COVID and after the trade dynamics changed. A lot of the manufacturers moved to different areas. So when that happens, it's kind of tough to keep quality up at the same time. So they're struggling, had to find it, end up causing problems. But so I appreciate you. I understand about that. I understand about you, the warranties and how they don't share, and they make it pretty tough to cover. So if you are working with a shop and that's warranty, be sure that they're very familiar with warranty, because the wording has to be very specific, because a lot of these guys that handle the warranty for these warranty companies have no idea how an engine works. And it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to know how the engine works, but what they'll do is, for example, if you don't mention that the warranted part caused the failure, then they deny warranty. Oh no, well then my part didn't cause all this damage. Actually, it was something else. And they got this court documents that they weren't able to even prove. They'll claim, they can claim workmanship. People, and a lot of other shops will do that. A lot of other shops will claim workmanship, because what do they gain out of it? They gain, I can put this other person down. I can possibly gain a customer. And I'm not saying that mistakes do not happen. Mistakes do happen, but when you factor in everything and you look at the whole picture, there's a lot of more things to the story. So I didn't mean to ramble on about warranty, but definitely ensure you're dealing with a shop that's familiar with warranty and how to word warranty, because they will try to deny your claim. If you're in the DFW area and you want to give us a shout, you want to give us a try, 972-225-3017. We're located off of Interstate 20, just south of Dallas. If you're coming through Texas, hit us up. 972. We're right here. Just off of Interstate 20 and Bonneview. There's the TA. You would just jump off of Bonneview, and we're right behind here. Let me give you a satellite view. There we are. Interstate 20. Hit us up, 972-225-3017. Appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. Look like we got a few viewers. We got a few comments. Appreciate you joining us. We're going to be trying to do this more consistent. I'll be on live again tomorrow. Let me know what's a good time for you. It'll probably be 7 p.m. We'll try to get a good schedule going. We're going to be covering some more information, just stuff that's coming into the shop. Let me know if you guys got any topics that you'd like for me to cover, but hopefully you were able to extract some information from today's broadcast. Thanks you for everyone that's joined us this evening. Thanks for all your questions. Hit that like button. Make sure to share these videos if you guys have some friends in the trucking industry, looking into the trucking industry, looking at technicians as well. Everyone be safe out there. Make sure to take your time. It's going to be Monday tomorrow. Everyone's going to be on the hustle and bustle. If you're able to get the start today, congratulations. You got a head start. If you're ready for Monday tomorrow, don't dread it. You know it's just going to happen. Some guys are starting today. Some guys are starting on Sundays. And then we got the hour change as well. So hopefully everybody's not too thrown off. Thank you, everybody that's joined us today. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And be safe out there. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again for joining us.